Hello, beautiful humans. Happy Tuesday. It's Tuesday afternoon, January 28th, and I just finished my appearance on Surviving the Survivor regarding the Kouri Richins case. And yesterday's live stream was a little bit cut short, and I know some of you had questions in the chat, so I wanted to just address some of those questions as well as some of the questions that came up during the episode with Surviving the Survivor today. And since I've been in Kouri Richins' research mode, I thought I would just share some of the things that I found. I know some of you have had trouble with notifications. I got a lot of that yesterday. Lots of people saying that they didn't get notified of the live until after it had ended. And granted, yesterday's live was a shorter one. It was only 20 minutes or so. I'm just really curious to know if anyone's notifications let them know that I was going live. This is not my normal time. I normally am an evening live person. But today I had a little time in my schedule. And so I thought that I would answer some of your questions here. Now I can see there are a couple of people here, which is great. Hopefully more people will get notified as we go along. And if you have a question, please go ahead and pop it in the chat, but call attention to it somehow so my ADHD brain can pick it up. Good to see you again, Michelle. Good to see you, Robin. Yay, McSpunky's notifications work fine. Yvonne from New Zealand. Good. Okay, I'm glad people are getting notifications. I was starting to worry. And also sometimes you may have turned on your notifications on the bell and you may not have the notifications turned on your phone or on your computer or whatever device you like to consume your YouTube on. So it's a two-step process, I guess. If you have your notifications turned on YouTube, that doesn't necessarily mean you have them turned on for the app on your phone or your iPad or whatever other device you're looking at. So, hi Lila, good to see you. Hey, Meme of 8 did not get a notification. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, if you have a specific notification problem or question, please feel free to just leave it in the comments for me after the live is over, because I don't look at the live comments after the live finishes. So just put them in the comments of the video. So again, we're here to talk a little bit about the Kouri Richins case. I was on Surviving the Survivor a little bit earlier today. And because I was going on, I wanted to sort of refresh my memory about the case and do a little research. So I went on a live yesterday just to recap the case. So I'll do that again really quickly here just because it only takes a minute to do that. So Kouri Richins was married to Eric Richins in 2013. I failed to mention yesterday that there was actually a prenuptial agreement in that marriage, which I haven't looked at yet, to be honest with you. I know that Hidden True Crime has all of the FOIA docs related to this case, and I believe that prenuptial agreement is part of that. So it might be interesting to dig into. I do know that from some comments that I've read and things that Kouri was apparently annoyed with her mother-in-law for making her sign this prenuptial agreement before marrying Eric. And then in 2015, between 2015 and 2017, Kouri started taking out multiple insurance policies on Eric. And I guess they were having some marital problems. I believe Kouri was texting with another man, whether or not they had a full-blown affair or whether they were just talking about it. Kouri did say, "Love you." And there was some texting going back and forth between her and this man on Valentine's Day of the year that Eric was killed. So this was the marital problems had already begun sometime in the 2015 to 2017 range. And then in 2020, Eric noticed that Kouri started charging thousands of dollars on credit cards, started withdrawing money from the bank accounts. And Kouri did have a real estate business, and I'm going to put that in quotes because it wasn't really a successful one. It didn't make money. It lost a lot of money. But during this entire case, Kouri was in the process of closing on a huge, I believe, $1.2 million house. And it was her plan to renovate the house and sell it. So that was kind of part of this whole debacle, is that Kouri was in deep, deep financial trouble. And apparently by the end of it, all added up together, the insurance policies that she took out on Eric would have alleviated that financial problem for her. So in 2020, when Eric starts noticing all of this money is going missing and Kouri is overextending herself on credit, he actually consults with a divorce attorney in October of 2020. And then in November, he moves all of his personal assets into a living trust, which I went over that yesterday. What that is here in the US is just a way for assets and money to pass to heirs without having to go through a probate court. And you can also designate specifically who you want your money to go to. In the event that you die without a will, then your assets generally pass to your next of kin, which in this case would have been his wife. And I know people who, after getting divorced, will put all of their money and assets into a trust and specifically designate that their ex-spouse is not to get a single penny of any of the money or assets in the trust. So that could have been what that was about. And then in January of 2022, Kouri took out yet another life insurance policy on Eric. And apparently this is the one that would have alleviated all those financial concerns. So this is a couple of years after Eric started noticing that she was in financial difficulty. So apparently she had gotten herself in pretty deep on this one. Then in February of 2022 is when Kouri allegedly arranged with her housekeeper to obtain fentanyl. And there are some pretty damaging text messages that get exchanged. She calls it some of that Michael Jackson stuff, which Michael Jackson apparently died of a fentanyl overdose that was administered to him by a doctor, apparently. I don't know a lot about that case, but just little snippets of things. And then on February 14th, Valentine's Day, Kouri was texting with this guy that she had been texting with, talking to, and she gave Eric a sandwich that was from a takeout place, apparently, but allegedly that sandwich was poisoned because Eric had a severe reaction to it. He used his son's EpiPen and then drank a huge amount of Benadryl. He did alert Kouri to what was going on and that it was, that how ill he was. And she said in her text messages something to the effect of, is it really that bad? She was in Provo waiting for their contractor or something like that. She was not with Eric when he was going through these could have been fatal symptoms. And after he started feeling better the next day, I believe he told his brother or a close friend, or maybe both of them, that he believed that Kouri had poisoned him. Which I find to be just so sad. Thank you for pointing this out, Miss Honeychurch, that Michael Jackson died from propofol, not fentanyl. Interesting then why Kouri would have referenced that when asking for fentanyl, but maybe she was mistaken as well. What I find incredibly sad about this case is that Eric obviously knew that things were not right. He consulted a divorce attorney, although I don't think he ever did actually file. He put, his assets into trust. And then after this episode on Valentine's Day, he notified his family members that he believed Kouri had tried to poison him. And obviously Kouri was kind of playing dumb and, didn't know why he was sick kind of thing. But I just find it tragic, just like in the case of Charles Vallow, when he tried desperately to reach out to law enforcement and family members and ends up passing away anyway. I need to think about that because it feels very emotional to me. And it feels like, what can we do? What more can we do when we have concerns like this? And I think some of it is that cognitive dissonance of nobody wants to believe that they're in a relationship that is going to end tragically in this way. Nobody wants to believe that the person that they're sharing a home with and sharing children with is capable of violence against them. And so I don't know. It's just, I put myself in that position. During my marriage, there were some times where I was afraid for my safety, but I never, ever believed that I would be killed, harmed, maybe hurt. Yes. And I was, but, that is just it's something that is so against human nature that it's hard for people like us, people who are, not psychopaths and murderers, it's hard for us to even imagine getting to the mental space where somebody could do that to another human being. And so even when there are serious concerns about safety, we don't want to push our brain into that space where we need to take actual steps to physically protect ourselves. So anyway, I'm feeling really sad about that set of circumstances, because then on March 4th, Kouri, about 30 minutes after texting this guy that she'd been texting that she loved him, she served a Moscow Mule to her husband, Eric, which, for those of you who don't know, a Moscow Mule is a vodka drink. It is typically served in a copper cup. The copper keeps the drink cold, and it's usually vodka, ginger beer, and lime. And so, interesting, it was, I guess Kouri was saying that it was to celebrate the closing on this big house that she had just bought that she was going to renovate. And she put, now I have to clarify, I made a mistake yesterday. She put 5 times the lethal dosage of fentanyl, allegedly, into his Moscow Mule, and he did end up dying. Now, the police, when they were called, originally investigated this as though it were an overdose. Kouri, I believe, tried to tell the police that he was a frequent drug user, and that continues to be her narrative to this day, that Eric was the one having the affair and that Eric was a drug user. So, yeah, I do want to point this out as well. Miss Mojo Risen says that huge house that she wanted so badly was known to people in contractors and real estate, not sellable, needed a lot of work. And Lauren Mathias of Hidden True Crime, when she was there last time for trial hearings and things like that, went to go visit the house, or at least, she went to the property where the house was located. And it shows, even to this day, I believe this was in December of 24, just a couple months ago, that the house was still sitting there unfinished and not worked on. And I believe that someone else owns it now. However, there are these properties that tend to get a reputation, right, in the real estate community, whether it's contractors, real estate agents, investors, and things like that. I can think of a few in the area where I live now that I've seen that have been on the market just forever. And it's a similar situation with a lot of these properties where it's a huge house, and it may be a nice location, it may be a nice lot or acreage, but the house itself is so outdated that it would be so expensive to renovate the house that it wouldn't justify the expense of, it wouldn't be a good investment, in other words, because, if you just loved the property and you just really wanted to live there, they do this in California all the time, where they'll buy a property for the location, even though it's tens of millions of dollars, and then they'll completely tear down the house and build something new. In this case, I don't think it was that desirable of a property that they would do that, especially considering the expense of around 1.2 million or something like that. But it looked to be that it was one of those that needed so much work and so much renovation that it wouldn't have been worth the investment, which seemed to kind of be an MO in Kouri's business, that she didn't really make the wisest investments. And it's easy for a novice getting into the housing market and into real estate investing to make some of these silly mistakes, where you just haven't really done the market research and you haven't really done the due diligence to understand the neighborhood and the value of the property and the cost of renovations. And you also have to consider carrying costs. In other words, the cost of holding on to that property while it's being renovated and you're not making any money on it. So there's no rent coming in, and you haven't been able to sell it. So flipping houses is an expensive and tricky business. It's something that I've looked into doing several times. I have a friend who has done that, and I thought about doing it a lot, but it's something that you really have to know. You have to know a lot about real estate, about investing, about contracting. You have to be able to estimate costs accurately, and you have to kind of have an in with some of those contractors for them to do the work in a timely manner, because contractors who have lots of delays or are unreliable can end up costing you a lot of money. So anyway, it's just this another point of interest to me in this case is the flipping investing part of it, because it is really easy to lose money quickly if you're not savvy about investing well. And that was obviously a part of the case. So thank you for Rio Rico pointing this out. Kouri wanted both propofol and fentanyl. She wanted something stronger after the sandwich on February 14th didn't work. Interesting. I do seem to remember that, like it's distant in my memory. So anyway, March 4th of 22 was when this alleged poisoning occurred. Eric did end up passing away. They investigated as an overdose. And I believe that it was Eric's sisters who were really instrumental in getting the police to take a second and a third look at this and to help them understand the context of some of the other evidence. However, the public didn't really know that Kouri was a person of interest in the case, but there are emails that have been exchanged back and forth between Kouri and law enforcement. Again, they're part of the Hidden True Crime FOIA documents. I highly recommend going over there to look at it. But by all accounts, it really seemed as though Kouri was a manipulative person. In those emails, she is trying to tell the law enforcement officers that she was an independent businesswoman. She didn't rely on her former husband for financial support. And all of these things were lies. Kouri didn't, law enforcement knew they were all lies, but I think Kouri didn't realize that they were looking at her. And her Google searches the day after her husband died were very suspicious. Not only that, but they found a few days after her husband's death that Kouri had obtained more fentanyl, which is chilling to me and very scary, thinking about the fact that she had her 3 boys and wondering if she was planning something horrible for them as well. Very scary and very concerning. Then about a year, in fact, a year and a day after her husband's death, Kouri, who we could also call Kouri Whore, which Kresha refers to my cousin Lori as Lori Whore. And yesterday I was on a live stream with the founder of the Church of Korihor. If you don't know, this is a Mormon inside joke. Korihor is a figure in the Book of Mormon who famously challenges a prophet and basically says there is no God. And he ends up being struck dumb. In other words, he can't speak. And then he dies an ignominious death. So anyway, that's a story we'll have to unpack sometime on the channel. But a year and a day after her husband's death, Kouri published a book called Are You With Me? Is that the name of it? Are You With Me? Yeah, that's it. I was just thinking as I was saying it, I'm like, that's a pretty simple title for a book. Is that really yeah, that's really the title, guys. And she actually hired a ghostwriter to write this. I don't know who the ghostwriter was, but I think she admitted at one point that someone else co-wrote the book or ghost wrote it. But I couldn't, in my research, I couldn't find information on it. But let me just do one quick thing. To see if I can find something else in my publishing contacts. Okay. So on Reddit, there is a discussion thread where someone mentioned Kouri Richins had a Google search for, quote, find someone to write a children's book, leading to speculation she might not have written the book herself. One comment in the thread explicitly stated she did use a ghostwriting service called Book Writing Lane. However, this information is from social media, should be treated with caution, blah, blah, blah. There's no official confirmation that she had a ghostwriter, but generally speaking, if you want a ghostwriter for a book, there are people you can hire. In fact, I have done some ghostwriting myself, and usually the arrangement involves a person telling a story or giving a concept or a book outline to a writer who will then fully develop it into a book, and then the arrangement is generally that the ghostwriter gets paid a one-time fee in exchange for not using their name on the book. Sometimes royalties are involved in the contract as well, just depends on what kind of book, etc. So I've done some ghostwriting in my past, and generally speaking, when you're a ghostwriter, you don't expect to be credited as a writer on the book, and that's part of the original agreement. So Miss Mojo Rising is confirming here, yes, she did not write it. If you have any resources that can have, bring us receipts on the fact that she used a ghostwriter, that would be really helpful. Anyway, so she publishes this book a year and a day after her husband's death. And then she contacted a talk show, which was Good Things Utah, which is a local Salt Lake talk show. And this is a sort of a lifestyle, social and lifestyle show. And she contacted them and asked if she could come on to promote this book. She said, I think it's going to help a lot of people. We went over that yesterday. So if you want to go back to yesterday's video, there's more information about her appearance on that talk show. And then just about a month later, so April of 2023 is when she appeared on that talk show. And then in May of 23 is when she was arrested for allegedly murdering her former husband. Apparently she was in debt about $1.8 million. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the life insurance policy, all of the policies that she had taken out on Eric totaled about $2 million, if I'm correct on that. Now, just to address some of the questions that I got yesterday on the live, I apologize. I had to jump off quickly because I had to go pick my daughter up from school. So I didn't get to stay on quite as long as I wanted to. And I'm happy to answer your questions here today if you have any more of them. But I wanted to clarify, first of all, that the fentanyl dose was 5 times the lethal amount. In other words, the amount that it would have taken to overdose, 5 times that amount. She wanted to make really, 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 really sure that this time the poisoning worked, allegedly. And then someone asked, do LDS people provide, or does the LDS Church provide or require premarital counseling? Because yesterday we talked a little bit about the idea that in the LDS Church, at least in the mainstream LDS Church, that divorces are somewhat frowned upon. They're seen as a little bit of a social failure at the very least, and also can be complicated for one's spiritual progression in the Mormon Church. When you get married for time and all eternity, not till just death do us part. And LDS people believe that in heaven that you will still be with your spouse and your other family members and your children, everybody all sealed together by proper priesthood authority. I haven't done really a deep dive on what sealing is, but every time I mention it, I think, man, there's a subject that I could do a whole video on. So if you're interested, I will do that. I have yet to do my video on my temple experience, because every time I think about it, I'm like, oh man, that's just such a rabbit hole to dig into. There's so much to cover there. And I haven't really unpacked all my emotions about that first time in the temple and the ripple effects that occurred afterwards for that. So I will get there, you guys, I promise. It's just, there are so many things to share. So the question was, do the LDS provide and or require premarital counseling? And the answer to that is no, it's not required. There was an organization called LDS Social Services, where the LDS Church employed social workers and marriage and family therapists. And the main purpose originally of that organization was to help unwed mothers place their babies for adoption and then offer counseling to the young mother, and counseling to couples also who were considering divorce. And just basically anybody who went into their bishop and noted that they were having some kind of a mental health problem, the bishop would refer them to LDS Social Services. Now, people in the LDS Church who are trained as therapists usually have a very heavy emphasis on religion. And all of the social services therapists that I went to, 3 different ones, their main goal, it seemed, was to keep you faithful and to bring in the power of Jesus Christ in your mental health healing, to pray more, read your scriptures more, make sure you're going to church, make sure you're paying your tithing, because a lot of times if you don't pay your tithing, then you can't use the free services like LDS family services, the therapy that the church would pay for usually. So that seemed to be the main goal for those therapists, was to keep you faithful rather than to really address the underlying mental health concerns. And actually 4, now that I think about it. 1, 2, no, just 3. Anyway, 3 different therapists, 3 completely different scenarios, different situations that I was going to see them for. And I really didn't find it helpful because I was dealing with unresolved trauma. I didn't know that at the time. I hadn't admitted to myself yet that my family of origin was traumatic growing up in, or any of that stuff. But I didn't find the therapy helpful because I was like, I'm already doing these things. I'm already praying. I'm already reading my scriptures. I'm already attending the temple as often as I can. I'm attending all my church meetings. I'm paying my tithing. I'm raising my kids in the church. We're having family home evening every night. We're having family scripture study every morning. Every time I'm in the car, I'm either listening to a conference talk or to scriptures. My entire day in and day out, was consumed with being a Mormon and doing all the Mormon things. And I wasn't finding any help or relief for my mental health struggles. And so I didn't find the advice of those therapists helpful because I was already doing all of that stuff and it wasn't working. I needed something else. I was like, mental health, maybe there's something more to this. So it wasn't until much later in my life, I was in my 30s, before I finally went to a therapist that was not LDS. And it was like night and day difference. I immediately started understanding things much better than I had before. I'm not going to say it immediately got easier, because usually when you go to therapy, it gets a lot worse first. And while I will say that my mood definitely got worse, my ability to function on a daily basis got worse, but that's because I was finally allowing reality to sink in. I was finally ending my coping mechanism of dissociating from the trauma and actually admitting that it happened. So anyway, all of that to answer the question. LDS Social Services does provide counseling. They do also refer people to counselors, but if you were a person in Utah in the area of Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrand during, the time that they were coaching and therapizing, a bishop might have recommended you to someone like Jody Hildebrand. So you have to be really, really careful about what therapists in the church you go to. And some of them were giving terrible advice. So they don't require premarital counseling as part of the process, which I understand some religions do. And I think that's actually a really good thing, because I think very few young couples address their family of origin and how that impacts the relationship that they're about to start. I think therapy before marriage is an excellent idea. I recommend that to everyone. And I think it's really important to ask some hard questions, like if you've got a potential future spouse, if you're a parent and you've got a child who's getting married, which I'm in this situation right now. I think it's important to ask the potential future spouse, what's your relationship with your parents like? What was your childhood like? What's your relationship with them now? Or were there any traumatic events in your past or your family's past? You want to investigate things like generational trauma. I think it's important to be aware of it and also to be able to talk openly about it. And if there's someone who's not comfortable answering those questions, that is a red flag, right? So anyway, I think a lot of young Mormon couples are so anxious to get married because premarital sex is completely taboo in the Mormon faith. And so you've got young people who have been suppressing their own sexuality for their entire lives, even sexual expression with themselves for their entire lives. And they sort of want to get to that rite of passage. And not only that, it's a biological instinct. It's a biological need for us. And so a lot of young people rush into marriage at a very young age without a whole lot of forethought. And it's pretty common for young people in college, we'll say BYU, University of Utah, these schools that are predominantly Mormon, it's very common for couples to get together and then get married really, really fast. We just read about this in Sherry Frankie's memoir, where Ruby and Kevin had a very short courtship. They got married on a very short time frame. And I've known so many people who get married on the break from school. So, for example, they'll meet somebody in the fall and decide they want to get married, and then they'll try to get married in the break between, the fall semester and the spring semester, so that they don't have to miss any school, and then so that housing is easier, so they can, move in together, live together. So it is really one of those things that is difficult about the Mormon culture, is that young people sort of rush into marriage without a lot of forethought. And I always think that, getting to know somebody and seeing how they handle situations in a variety of circumstances. And I honestly think that a year is a pretty good time frame for an engagement, because then you sort of get to observe them through all the seasons and all the holidays and all the interactions with family members, and how they handle money and how they handle communication. And you get to see them go through a variety of different circumstances and how they handle those things before you get married. And I certainly have been grateful that my daughters have not so far rushed in to relationships too quickly, and have taken some time before having kids, because that tends to be the Mormon treadmill thing, to get married super young, super quick, and then immediately start having kids. I'm glad that my kids did not follow in my footsteps in that way. So Change Capability Institute comments here: some LDS couples work, but many, like me, ran to marriage to avoid sex that makes LDS God angry. Yeah, that happens a lot. And then, this is true. Premarital counseling usually doesn't smoke out psychopaths like Kouri Richins, but times such as a courtship for 2 years will reveal the red flags. Exactly what I'm saying. Also, I think that a skilled clinician can point out some red flags. Maybe not, this looks like somebody who could be a psychopath. Maybe not that. But Kouri had a lot of pushback about that prenuptial agreement. It would have been interesting for them to work that out with a therapist, and have the therapist ask some probing questions of Kouri, like, what's making you so uncomfortable about this? Why are you feeling annoyed or frustrated that you're being asked to sign a prenuptial agreement? Like, do you have an intent to end the marriage and take the finances? If you don't, then there's nothing to be worried about, right? So skillful questions can sometimes be a real telling way to root out someone's true intentions or true motives. So, this is true, Miss Mojo Rising. Military marriages are common with friends too. Just thinking, military marriages being rushed into because of deployment and things like that. Deployment or relocation, not wanting to have a long distance relationship. So that's definitely true. So another question that I got was about the book that Kouri Richins wrote. And when I was on Surviving the Survivor today, somebody pointed out that you can actually see the book. It has been pulled from publication. And yesterday we went and looked at the Goodreads page, where there are some pretty wild comments, a little dark humor about the book. But I want to share with you, there is a YouTube channel where this person reads children's books. And so I found it. It's here. Somebody pointed this out on Surviving Survivor today. So here it is. This is the book, Are You With Me? By Kouri Richins. And we can read the whole thing. And it's pretty quick. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. It only takes about 5 minutes. I'm going to make sure that I'm not on, I'm always on double speed. So I'm going to put that back to normal here. Honestly, I'm just going to give a little bit of a trigger warning. This was a really sad book for me. Thinking about these poor kids, Kouri's 3 sons, having to go through losing their father, and the book itself. Well, I'll just let it speak for itself. We'll go ahead and play it here, and you can hear. I just want to make sure that I'm also sharing the audio of the tab so you can hear it being read. And even if you can't hear it being read, you can see the words on the pages, so you can go back and look at it. So here we go, you guys. It's going to be, it's a little difficult. So maybe if you are feeling emotional, maybe pause this and then skip over it. Or if you're watching it on the replay, you can skip over it.
Are You With Me? By Kouri Richins.
Now, this person, it's Mrs. Morris Reads. She's got 52,000 subscribers, and this video has 33,000 views, which I don't know if that is typical for her channel. Let's take a look. No, not typical. Her other books have, oh, well, her popular videos do have hundreds of thousands of views. So that's good. I mean, it looks like it might be a nice channel. However, I don't know about leaving this book up for people. And I was just going to mention there's some music in the background, and I think probably that gets done to avoid copyright violation, because I don't know if it's strictly a violation of copyright to read books that are not yours without crediting the author or without having the author receive some kind of compensation. I'm not an expert on copyright law in this area, so I couldn't tell you. But that's why there's some music in the background, I think.
Are You With Me? By Kouri Richins. Dedication. Dedicated to my amazing husband and a wonderful father.
Ugh, that got me, you guys.
Always on our minds, forever in our hearts. Weston, Carter, Eric, Corey, Ashton, and Harley. Are you in the clouds when I look up to see you, to tell you about my day, ask about yours, and tell you that I love you? Are you at my soccer game when I scored that goal for you? I looked for you in the crowd, but you weren't there. Did you see it? Are you with me on my birthday to blow out my candles, to celebrate another year and watch me grow, teach me new things, and watch me make mistakes? Are you with me on my first day of school, when I'm scared, nervous, and have the butterflies? Will I make friends? Will the teachers be kind? Will you walk the halls with me that day? Are you with me on Christmas when Santa delivers my presents? When I rip through them as fast as I can because I can't wait to see what's next? Did you see what I got from Santa? Are you with me when I'm sad because I miss you? When I'm thinking about you and wondering what we would be playing today if you were here? Are you with me when I'm happy? When something exciting has happened? Can you see me smiling and my heart so full? Are you happy with me? Are you with me when I'm in danger and I'm scared? When my palms are sweaty, my heart rapidly beating, and I need you? Are you there with me to make sure I'm safe? Yes, I am with you. I am with you to listen about your day and tell you about mine. I sit next to you while you talk with my arm around your shoulder and my head on your head while we talk together. I am with you when you scored that goal for me. You couldn't hear me cheer for you, but I yelled and clapped as loud as I could, just like always. Yes, I am with you while you blow out your candles for yet another birthday. Although I'll miss the upcoming years, I stand hand in hand with you, walking with you, helping you, and praising you. I will watch you grow into a fine young man. Yes, I am with you as you walk the halls of the new school, making new friends, meeting new teachers. I will sit at your desk next to you, teaching you, pushing you to try harder, and giving you my love when you succeed. Yes, I am with you on Christmas. I'm in my Christmas pajamas, drinking hot chocolate, and I have the glow in my eyes watching you open your gifts. You can't see my smile, but it's there. I'm here, and we're together. Yes, I am with you when you are feeling sad, when your eyes are full of tears. Your heart is empty and you miss me. I am wiping away the hurt, holding you in my arms, and telling you I love you. I am here with you. Yes, I am with you when you are happy and you are so excited your heart could burst. I am next to you, smiling, proud, and holding your hand. You can't hear me whisper, but I do tell you that I love you. Yes, I am with you when you are scared. I am holding on to you to give you the courage to stay strong and brave. I hold you to make sure you're not alone and to remind you everything will be okay. I hear you when you speak to me and ask me how I am, and to tell me you love me. I watch down over you, embrace you, feel you, hear you. I gently reply, I love you too. I am here with you every day, every minute, every second. Although you cannot see me, I am there. It's me in the wind. I'm the chill you feel. It's me, feeling as if someone's with you. I will forever love you, my sweet baby, until we see each other again. Yes, I am with you.
Oh, goodness, you guys. That was heavy for me. I don't know how you felt about it, but just, seeing the illustrations of the little boy with the sad face and the dad being portrayed as an angel with wings and, the halo, man, it's just heartbreaking for me to think about those poor boys and what they must be going through. I can only hope that Eric's family is taking really good care of them. Um, by the way, just as an interesting side note, Mormons don't believe that angels have wings. You've probably seen the statue of the angel Moroni on top of the temples. It's like the iconic gold statue of the dude in the dress, with a trumpet. And which, by the way, I was watching a Zelf on the Shelf episode, and or no, it was a Nemo the Mormon episode, and they had a panel discussion, and I believe it was Tyler from Zelf on the Shelf that referred to the temple as the International House of Handshakes. And I just about lost it. Because for those of you who don't know, part of the Mormon temple ceremony involves secret handshakes that you need in order to get into heaven. If you don't know the secret words and handshakes, you're not getting in. But yeah, I just wanted to say, angels in Mormonism, angels don't have wings. They're just portrayed as like regular people. Not sure what the deal with the robes is, but I don't know. Does that mean we get to like pick our favorite outfit to come back in? I don't know. Anyway, that's a rabbit hole for another time. Yeah, and let's not forget, Mick Spunky reminds us that Lori was married to Moroni in a prior probation. So we all know that Lori doesn't have wings. So Moroni definitely doesn't have wings on those temple statues. So it's funny to me that she puts wings on him in the book, and maybe, I don't think she illustrated it. I don't know who did illustrate it, but I find the whole book really disturbing, and I'll tell you why. I went back and re-listened to some of Lauren and John Matthias's coverage of this, which, if you don't know, I'm a hidden true crime super fan. If you haven't been to their channel, I love the way that they approach crime, and they are just beautiful people. So please go support their channel. Please go subscribe. But one of the videos, they are talking about this book, and Dr. John says, like, this is not a book about grieving. There's no grief in this book. This book avoids grieving. It's not the idea of never seeing a loved one again. It's the idea of, can't I please just have you with me still? Like, are you still here with me? And for religious people, I suppose that is not so strange to think about because, when I was a, member of the church, my belief was very much in an afterlife. And the idea that we will see our loved ones again, and the idea that our loved ones do come to us and visit us and send us messages and signals and signs and things like that. And I'm not saying that I don't believe that anymore, or, my belief around all of these things is constantly changing and shifting as I contemplate the existential crises that I get faced with. But it's just interesting to me that Dr. John put it that way, of the idea, and I do firmly believe this, the idea of our loved ones still being with us in some way, physically or watching over us or whatever it is, it does delay the grieving process. If you really still think that your loved one is with you, you really haven't grieved their loss. You've grieved their absence perhaps, but not their loss, not the possibility that you will never see them again. And I think that that's one of the reasons why my brain gets really foggy when I start thinking about things that are somewhat traumatic for me. And I definitely have some leftover spiritual trauma, religious trauma, especially around afterlife belief. So I will just say that we all have to face our existential fears: fear of death, fear of meaninglessness, fear of isolation, and fear of freedom. We all have to face those fears. I think religion solves a lot of those problems for us, that we don't have to face the fear of death because we believe in an afterlife. We don't have to face the possibility of never seeing someone again because we believe in an afterlife. We believe we will see them again. So it's just an interesting thing to think about, that, if we have a belief in an afterlife, then we really haven't grieved the loved ones that are not with us anymore. I'm really curious to know what you think about this. And again, as I've said, I'm very squarely in the camp of I have no idea. I don't really label myself as agnostic or as atheistic, because I think that puts a label on you and then you're sort of done thinking about it, right? I'm not done thinking about it. I'm still exploring all of these spiritual ideas and spirituality in general. But I'm curious what you viewers think of it. I'd love to hear in the comments. If you're a faithful person, how do you feel about that idea that a belief in the afterlife prevents you from grieving a person's death, because you're grieving their absence, but not the finality of never seeing them again. So I'm just curious about that. Or if you're not a religious person, what do you think of that idea? I'm just interested to know. So I'd love to hear from you about that. Yvonne says there's a cool doco called Eternal You about AI apps that allow you to text the deceased, artificial transcendence. Wow. Interesting. That is really interesting. I don't know, you guys. There's just something that strikes me as having been through this case with Lori and Chad's crazy beliefs really puts a different spin on religion for me. And it makes it impossible for me to see it as an entirely healthy thing. Now, I do think that religion is good in some ways. I think that it is essential for some people. I think that it can be a good thing, right? And as I've said so many times, the majority of Mormon people that I know, both LDS, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Mormons in other sects of Mormonism, seem to be really good people trying to live good, happy lives and treat others well. It's just that this is what I've always said since day one on this channel, is that when you claim to speak for God, or when you claim to be able to get personal revelation from God, it strays into the harmful. Because prayer, for me, and the psychology behind it has so much to do with our own personal experiences, our own psyche, our own biases, our own desire to seek out confirmation bias. And this is what I saw in Lori's case, was that Lori wanted what Lori wanted. And so the God that she prayed to was just an extension of her own psyche. She was asking God for permission to do all these horrible things. But in her mind, she was already saying, I know God's going to let me do this because I know that I'm a special chosen being, right? So it's very easy for religious concepts to turn unhealthy. It's very easy for spirituality to turn unhealthy. And it's very easy for it to become harmful for both of those things, religion and spirituality, personal revelation, like it's all intertwined. And having been through the Daybell case it's just dangerous to me in so many ways. The majority of the people in religion, fine. Mentally ill people, psychopaths, abusers, religion, I've said before, the Mormon church is a place where abusers can thrive because it's a culture where we are set up to trust the religious leaders implicitly, to never question what they say, and to believe that they're being guided and directed by God. And when you believe that, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble and you can set yourself up to be manipulated and controlled and abused. And I just find that really harmful. So I'm not meaning to bash on anyone's faith or anyone's religion, but my unique perspective and experiences, I think it's an important conversation to talk about. And I think it's important for anyone who is in any kind of an organization, religious, club, social organization, even looking at your family. I think it's so important to examine all of the systems in which we exist for healthy versus unhealthy. And to ask yourself a few questions, like, first of all, is it safe for me to criticize the leaders? If I criticize the leaders, am I going to receive some kind of backlash? Are there going to be social consequences? Are there going to be spiritual consequences if I'm critical of something someone is doing wrong? Another point to think about is it safe for me to leave? Like if I go and decide to live my life another way, go to a different church, go to a different club, belong to a different social circle, take some distance away from my family, if I step away, are there going to be consequences for me? Are people going to shun me? Are they going to vilify me? I can speak from experience in saying that some of the people that I sat in church with every single Sunday when I left the church automatically, immediately demonized me. And I have the receipts to prove it. Maybe someday I will unpack that. But it is incredibly troubling to know that I could go from being quote unquote welcomed and loved and respected one day and literally the next day being called evil and being told that I shouldn't be associating with my children's friends. I shouldn't be influencing children in any way. So yeah, sorry. It's kind of taken a personal turn, you guys, but this is what happens on this channel sometimes. I don't know. I just find it difficult. So let's move on to the last couple of questions that I have. If you've got more questions about the Kouri Richins case, I'm happy to answer them here. This might be the last time that we talk about it, although I suspect, her trial is scheduled to happen in April of this year, probably going to be going on about the same time as Lori's trial because we know jury selection begins on March 31st for Lori's trial. Likely will take a couple of weeks. We know that the prosecution is going to take a couple of weeks for their case. And even if Lori only takes 1 week, then we're already at the end of April at that point. Sorry, my train of thought just switched tracks. I apologize, you guys. Thanks for being patient with me through all of my ADHD moments. Also, it's oddly emotional for me talking about the church stuff that we were just talking about. I didn't expect that. I really thought that I had unpacked that and dealt with it. Anyway, it's very likely that Kouri's trial is going to be going on at the same time as Lori's, or at least that they're going to overlap in some way. So I don't think I'm going to be covering afterwards, but I will be following it. I will be following Lauren on Hidden True Crime. I always love her perspective and Dr. John's perspective. So I'm going to leave that one up to them and probably Lauren probably will be there for some of that as well. I know this case has been really important to her as well, being in Utah and one of the areas that she used to cover as a journalist in her 10 years as a journalist. So it'll just be interesting to see the timing. We may do some kind of a recap after everything is over, or at some point if something crazy comes out. So I basically feel as though on this channel, I'm going to cover some of the true crime things that are related to Lori's case. And these two cases are very similar in my mind. Also, just the kind of person that Kouri is, noticing some of her manipulative behaviors that lines up with my e-course that is going on right now. Actually, we're going to be doing the 4th module tonight. And if you want to sign up for the e-course on how to identify and defend against manipulation and control, you still can sign up for it. And we are somewhat in the middle of it. However, all of the modules and all of the materials are going to be available indefinitely for anyone who wants to take the e-course. So after we finish the live portion, which will happen at the end of February, it's going to move to a static format where you can log in and consume the material at your own pace. So for anybody who's still interested in that, I am still offering that 50% discount code for anybody who follows my channel. So just email me at askmeegan@gmail.com. That's 2 E's, MEEGAN, askmeegan@gmail.com. And I'll be sure to get you the registration link. So we're going to continue always talking about manipulation and control, talking about narcissism, talking about shadow traits, how to identify these things, how to defend against them, and also how to do our own work on those parts of ourselves that we don't maybe like as much, so that we don't turn into a manipulative person or someone who shows up in toxic ways in relationships. That's the only way to prevent this kind of thing from happening, is to work on ourselves. And Carl Jung, who was a famous psychoanalyst who was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud, had his own way of looking at different personality traits. And he calls those shadow traits our jealousy, our anger, our spite, our pettiness, the things that we don't love about ourselves. He calls those our shadow traits. And he even says, if you look at the things that irritate you about other people, those are the things you don't like about yourself usually. And he also talks about the idea that doing that shadow work can really heal the world, because looking at those traits and healing them in ourselves helps us then to relate better to other people. And I think it's really important work, and that's what we're always going to be talking about on this channel. So thank you so much for this, Miss Mojo Rising. No religion or church for me. I believe in spiritual God. I don't being labeled as a Christian. Maybe I don't believe in being labeled as a Christian. Thank you so much for contributing that. There's a saying that religion is for people who are scared of hell, and spirituality is for people who have been there. And I identify with that because my religion was part of my hell. And I don't mean to belittle anybody's religious beliefs at all. And I don't want to marginalize anyone by saying that religion is for people who are scared of hell. It's just sort of a glib way of classifying the difference between religion and spirituality. So I think it's an important distinction to make. So thank you for saying this, Michelle. That's so narrow-minded, that behavior you're sharing that you experienced. I appreciate that. It's good to know that I'm not crazy. And then Sherry says, I feel you have a clear vision and I love your perspective. I also feel what you think. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Robin, who is a great friend of the channel, big supporter of the channel. Thanks for being here, Robin. Manipulation is so hurtful. We are feeling here too. I appreciate you saying that and contributing. So the last couple of things. In the Kouri Richins case, there's a famously disputed piece of evidence called the walk the dog letter. Apparently one day when, and I know I'm going to have to wrap this up because I think I have someone coming in, but one day when Kouri was on a video call with her attorney, she held up a piece of paper that had some, big lettered writing on it. And the prison guards, first of all, it's a violation of policy. You're not allowed to be communicating with people that way. And so later on in the day, they searched her cell and they found this piece of paper that's been now referred to as the walk the dog letter. And I will show it to you here. I don't sorry for doggies. I don't have a clear copy of it. This is actually the only time I've ever seen it, is when I was on Surviving the Survivor today, when Joel put this up on the screen. That's the first time that I've seen it. So I don't have a clear copy. This is the only time I've ever seen it. I'm sure it's available out there on the internet somewhere. I just haven't dug into it. But it says walk the dog in all caps, and then it says, but take vague notes so you remember, with a star next to it. It says page 1. Sky is saying, Sky Borgman was her former attorney, even if the gummies have fentanyl in them, the prosecutor will say, I tried to put the fentanyl in the gummies. So, and then I can't really read this next part. Stupid, I know, but that's what she's thinking. We'll still test them though. However, maybe you guys can decipher, or you know a little bit better. I'm going to pause just for a second. Give me 1 second, you guys. Okay, sorry about that, guys. The name of the psychologist talking about shadow work is Carl Jung, Jung, a German psychoanalyst. So anyway, going back to this walk the dog letter, trying to read as much of it as I can. It says the writing is so light. So we need some kind of connection. Her private investigator is doing some research on the, can't read that word, / Carter Place, maybe her house that she was, Eric would stay at. Here is what I'm thinking, but can't read this. This is too light. Sorry, you guys. Fortify this, but it's super short. I'm sure the text of this has got to be somewhere online. You need to tell Sky something next week upon information and belief, just like they say, a year prior to Eric's death, something we over, and this is obviously, it's not the complete thing. So the summary, though, that I've seen online of this letter is that it's basically Kouri giving instructions to her mom to walk the dog, and to what her brother should say if he's called to testify in court. The controversy is that if this letter indeed was written to Sky, her attorney, the defense is trying to argue that that is a privileged communication between Kouri and her attorney. However, it's very clear, even from this little snippet that I'm reading, that it is not to Sky, but it is about Sky. It talks about Sky in the third person. The defense is also trying to allege that this was a fictional work that Kouri was working on. And my comment on Surviving the Survivor today was, okay, that just puts her squarely in the camp of Chad Daybell, where she's just not very creative, and she has to use real life events and real life names in her work of fiction because her imagination just is not that great. So whether it is fictional or not, it was not marked clearly as privileged or private or confidential or communication with her attorney. It wasn't marked that way. So when they found it in the cell, in searching her cell, they have a right to search prisoners' cells whenever they want. There's nothing that's considered confidential unless it specifically is marked that way, and it wasn't. So my conclusion, although of course I'm not a judge or an attorney, my conclusion would be that they should admit this as evidence because It wasn't clearly marked. And it is evidence of her witness tampering, of her trying to tell her brother what to say. Although I couldn't decipher that here, but that's what I've heard other legal people talk about, that they've seen the letter and that it's her telling her brother how to testify or how to answer questions from either police or prosecutors if he should be called as a witness. So anyway, that is what the walk the dog letter is, and that's the controversy about it. I don't believe there's been a ruling yet on as to whether that can be allowed. The other piece of controversial evidence is an orange notebook that was found in the house. There was a warrant for search and seizure of certain items, but the orange notebook wasn't specifically on that warrant. But they found the notebook, and then I guess they went back afterwards to try and obtain a warrant for it. Because, you know, what the attorney today, Greg, was saying on Surviving the Survivor is that warrants have to be very specific. However, if you're going into a crime scene and you're searching for something specific and you find something else that is material to the commission of the crime, then you can go back and request an expansion of that warrant to include that specific item. I guess the controversy is that it wasn't properly obtained. It could be notes between Kouri, or notes for Kouri's therapist, and so it could be confidential in that way under the HIPAA Act. And then the other piece of controversy is regarding Kouri's cell phone. When the police first came to talk to her, they asked her for her cell phone, asked her for the passcode on the cell phone. She hadn't been read in her Miranda rights, and she willingly gave over that passcode. Now the defense is trying to go back and say, well, we have to exclude everything that's on the cell phone because she hadn't had her Miranda rights read in. Well, again, what the attorney Greg said today was that you don't have to be read your Miranda rights if you're not under arrest. Most of the time, law enforcement will, they call it Miranda people in, just in case something comes out that is interesting or important. And so that was the case here, where Kouri was not under arrest. She wasn't being detained. She was, but she also wasn't free to go. She was being interviewed by the police, and they asked her for her cell phone. She willingly gave over the passcode. And of course, they found, you know, evidence on there that they could use. So there are a couple of things about, you know, the controversy of what's going to be admitted in as evidence. And now we're very close to the trial. We're only 90 days away. So the judge is going to have to rule on all of this pretty quickly to make a determination about evidence, if they're going to be prepared to present that evidence, and if the defense is going to be prepared to do whatever they have to do to refute that evidence. So I wanted to answer your questions from my live yesterday, which got cut a little bit short. And I wanted to just give you a little bit of a recap of my appearance on Surviving the Survivor today. They're always so generous with me. And they're starting a new channel, which is called STS Talk. And it's going to be the COE, who is Joel's partner in crime and podcasting. And she is going to be doing more of a talk show commentary format on true crime. Now, Joel goes live, I think, every day at noon Eastern time, discussing whatever case is in the news at the time. And he's covered Lori's case. I've been on his show several times talking about other cases like Kouri's case and anything else that involves anything to do with Mormon true crime for that perspective. But the new channel is STS Talk. Apparently, the first episode premiered today. And so you can go and look that up. And I would highly recommend going to follow that. I love the COE. I think she's a great interviewer. I've seen lots of episodes with her interviewing guests. I talked with Joel after the show about appearing on that new channel with her. So I definitely am going to be doing that, hopefully in the near future. And so I just wanted to plug that for Surviving the Survivor. I love their channel, and they're great people over there. So if you haven't been over there, I highly recommend it. Go subscribe to the new channel. And if you want to watch the episode I did over there, I decided not to dual stream it here because I got some inside information that YouTube doesn't really like it when you do that. And so I've stopped doing that when I appear on other people's channels, because I want other people's channel to be able to get the views that they need. So I'm going to start doing a better job of letting you guys know when I'm appearing on another channel. Tonight is one of those where I'm going to be appearing on Latter Daily Digest, as I have been lots of Tuesdays in the past. We are going to be talking about, let me let me look it up because I don't remember. We've talked about so many different ideas for topics, but tonight's episode, it's already up there on the channel. The thumbnail, anyway, it's up there on the Latter Daily Digest channel. If you haven't been there, please go subscribe. But it's the episode is called "Where Will You Go? Life After Belief," and this is about the idea that in Mormonism, again, just as I was talking about today, the Mormon church leaders really try to shame people into staying in the church. They try to scare people into thinking that they're going to lose everything when they leave the church. And there's a famous talk by, I believe, Jeffrey Holland, called the "Where Will You Go" talk. And it basically asks that question: if you leave us, where will you go? What will you do? With whom will you associate? With whom will you socialize? If you're not a Mormon, then who are you, basically? So we're going to be talking about that concept a little bit tonight. And our panel discussions are usually very interesting and a little bit more, it's sort of like after dark. It's very loose. There tend to be sometimes profanity filled tirades, which is, cathartic for us. So if that's not your thing, I don't mind if you pass, but it is always a really interesting discussion with some fellow former members and members who are physically in, mentally out, lots of different different spectrums of where we are with our Mormon faith and our involvement in that. So I really appreciate you, Raquel. Is it Raquel? I hope I'm saying that right. Yes, please like the button. I love anybody who is supporting the channel. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I have some exciting announcements coming up in the next few days about memberships, a brand new platform, a brand new members only, not a new channel on YouTube, but a platform for members only, where I'm going to be doing some crazy things, like, for example, cooking some of my favorite dishes, inviting you over for dinner with me, playing some music on the piano, possibly doing some singing, just all the things that people have asked me for on my channel, but things that I don't necessarily want to put out there for the public, or even for members only on my channel, because that kind of content tends to confuse the algorithm. And I'm trying to grow my channel in this one little space of talking about mental health and healing at the intersection of faith, high demand religion, Mormonism, true crime. So I'm trying to keep that in a very narrow window. Yes, singing Bruno, because I actually have a version of one of his songs that I do. I started singing it at karaoke whenever I got divorced. He sings a song called "When I Was Your Man," and I changed the words to "When You Were My Man." And it's a little bit of a snarky take on a breakup song. So anyway, yes, that's the kind of stuff I'm going to be doing on this new platform, where members can go support. Now, the memberships on this channel are not totally going away, but I'm keeping the very lowest level of membership because it's only $3. I want people to be able to support the channel, even if you only have a few bucks a month to give. So that membership level is going to stay, but the higher levels of membership are going to go away. And instead, they're going to be replaced by this different platform where I plan to post members only content at least 2 or 3 times a week. So if you're interested in that, please let me know that you're interested in supporting it so that I can know that I'm going in the right direction with that. I really appreciate anybody who's here supporting. All of you who've subscribed to the channel, I really appreciate it. I'm up to about 9,600. I would love to get up to 10,000. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. I will be covering the Lori Vallow Daybell case in depth. I will be at the trial as much as I possibly can. And I also really appreciate all of you who give super chats and super stickers. I want to let you know, though, that one of the reasons for the changes in memberships and things is that this platform does take a large portion of those contributions. And so I've been looking into other avenues where the support can be more direct and less other entities hopping on and taking advantage of that money. Unfortunately, Patreon, I set up a Patreon. I have some members on Patreon, which I greatly appreciate that support. But unfortunately, I just found out that Patreon is going to be allowing Apple to take to charge their iOS fee on in-app purchases. So that means that if you have an iOS device like an iPhone, an iPad, a Mac, and you're logging on to Patreon and you have a membership that you're paying for, they're going to allow Apple to charge their fee, which I think their iOS fee is pretty ridiculous. It can be as high as 10% in some cases. And what Patreon is doing is they're just raising the membership price to cover that iOS fee. So for example, if my membership was $20 a month, and Apple was charging $2, then Patreon would just raise the fee to $22. And then I would only get to see, I'd get to see less than 20 because Patreon also takes a cut. This new platform that I'm moving to, they do not take a cut at all. And iOS cannot charge a fee on this new platform. So it's going to be the best way to make sure that 100% of your donation actually goes to support the channel so that I can keep creating content like this. I do also have a Venmo and a Cash App, and those are the same as all my social media at @3_verse. Although I think my Cash App is something like $3verse. I'll have to look and see. I don't even remember. I just know that @3_verse was not available on Cash App when I set up my account. So I'll have to look it up and see what that is. I also am going to set up a Buy Me a Coffee because I really like that idea as well. And I would like to hear from you. If there's a way that you'd like to support the channel, but it's not available to you, please let me know. I'm here for you. I'm creating this content for you. I want you to get the content that you want and need. So that feedback is really important to me. And as always, I always read through all the comments of the videos that are left after the video has gone live. I don't go back and look at the comments that are left during the video. So if I missed your comment here, please comment on the video after it goes live or after it ends. And that way I'll be sure to see your comment. So on Cash App, it's $$ and then @3verse MC as in Megan Connor. So I apologize that that's such a weird, different thing. But it just was what I had to do for Cash App. So there we are. It's not something I've used very often. So anyway, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your support. Please let me know what else you'd like me to cover on the channel. And again, that member update should be coming a little bit later in the week. I'll probably talk about it again on the live on Wednesday night after the episode release. And then I probably will do a short live to describe the new platform and launch my new website, which is just gleamy and shiny, and I'm so excited about it. And my new sponsor, Revolutionary Media. So all of those announcements are coming probably on Thursday or Friday of this week. So make sure you have notifications turned on in the app, and also make sure that you have them turned on your device as well. If you're having trouble with notifications, again, leave it in the comments. Let me know so that I can help you get that sorted out. I always love spending time with you guys. I always hate saying goodbye and ending the stream, but I guess it's about that time. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please take care of each other, but mostly take care of yourself and continue being the beautiful humans that you are.